Come on, Livingston, we're gonna go on and on and on. Together we can make it. We're gonna go on and on and on. Come on, Livingston.
Knocks it through. Mullen bursting into the box. Josh Mullen.
Together we can make it.
Mullen's ball across. It's turned in. It's Pittman who's got it. Livingston leads.
Can they get the ball back in? O'Brien.
Lead! And Livingston have the lead.
Man, you score.
If we march to
The full-time whistle blows and David Hayes celebrates. And the Livingston fans join in exultation.
come on, Livingston.
Livingston have the lead against Rangers, and they are certainly rising to a few occasions on their return to the top flight in Scotland.
Come on, Livingston. We're gonna go.
Hello and welcome back to Talk Livi, the podcast dedicated to everything Livingston Football Club and Scottish football. My name's Ewan and today I'm joined by Angus and the returning Callum Brown, who has decided to bless us with his presence today. Andy's unavailable. I think Andy can't take a defeat after the recent run of form, so Andy's not doing it today for whatever reason. But coming up, we'll look back at Tuesday night's game with Aberdeen. Would we be able to record our first victory at Pittodrie since 2004?
Following on that, we will talk about the dress rehearsal of the Betfred Cup final as we welcome St Johnstone to the Tony Macaroni Arena.
And finally, we'll preview our two upcoming games as we host Hamilton on Wednesday. Then we travel to Tannadice for our third game against Dundee United this season.
Wednesday night saw the Lions stop for a controversial Tony Macaroni dinner before making their way to Pittodrie to face off against Derek McInnes's Aberdeen. The Lions had gone 17 years without a victory against the Dons, but would break that streak with a fantastic 2-0 victory. A Joe Lewis own goal and a Nicky Devlin header would be enough for us to take our unbeaten run to 14 games, a massive achievement for the club. Lads, away performances don't get much better than that, do they?
Yeah, it was a kind of top class away performance. Take your chances and obviously defended very well and gave very little away. I think just touching on the Tony Macaroni bit, have to say the club came out with a very good statement about that. Obviously we're well within the guidelines that were given to them by the SFA and the joint response group, so it's good that they came out and kind of quashed any controversy very early doors. But moving on to the game, obviously it was a bit eventful before kick-off with Sibs pulling out, damn grass pitches causing injuries again, Sibs pulling out, and obviously John, I think Guthrie's been struggling with an injury. He's kind of been nursing it the last couple of games anyway, so once kind of heard about that, it's not a great surprise, but fair play. I think Aaron Taylor-Sinclair was excellent, considering he'd been out in the cold for so long. And you know, the first goal, Bruni, even you and the goalkeepers union can't really defend that one from Joe Lewis. It's an absolute howler, but I kind of had to take a double take at the celebration. And for anyone that hasn't seen Soccer AM this week, Bruni and Dave Black made an appearance for the commentary for that goal. So going up in the world, Dave Black got woken up as the ball went into the net. It sounded like so, but it's a great start. And I mean, that goal all starts with the pressing from Josh Mullen on the far side. Josh Mullen forces a mistake for it to come back into Jet in the middle of the park, and he puts it out wide. And but I think the pressing first half was excellent. Pittman, Holt and Lawson in the middle of the park I thought were incredible. I thought they had brilliant performances. Was really impressed with Steve Lawson in particular. The amount of times he just gets a toe on something like a loose ball in the middle of the park and manages to nick the ball away is quite frightening. And I thought Jet also had a really good game. I think that's probably his best game in a Livi jersey. But second goal, you know, quick thinking from the set piece. Serrano's had an effort, and it's a good ball back out wide by Effie, and Josh Mullen doing Josh Mullen things. Great delivery for Nicky Devlin, free header in the middle of the box, and our man Nicky's now chasing John Guthrie to try and get to the top of the scoring charts. But It was a great first half. We could have had another couple, I would have said. I think Aberdeen just were not at it at all. Second half, we were going to expect a lot of pressure from Aberdeen, but other than really Lewis Ferguson, there was no real threat from them. You know, Ferguson's effort, which came off the underside of the bar, he tried to test Stryjek another couple of times after that, but we could have easily got a third. Pittman hitting the post, but it was such a dogged second half display. I think Davey said that's probably the proudest of results on that unbeaten run, because it'd been so long since we'd beaten Aberdeen, and obviously haven't beat them since we came back into the top flight. But incredible away performance.
I think a lot's been made of sort of Aberdeen not being at it and having an off day type thing from a wee bit of media, a wee bit of Aberdeen fans type thing. I know they're obviously having a bit of turmoil just now and wanting, Derek McInnes to leave, things like that. But I don't think it's a coincidence that, every time we seem to play a team, they're not at it. I don't think at all that's a coincidence, But we'll come on to it, obviously, from yesterday. I do believe we weren't at it personally, but, when we are at it, we put teams under pressure. You mentioned the pressing, Ewan. We put Aberdeen under all sorts of pressure, didn't allow them to play. The style of football's not particularly brilliant anyway, but, I thought the pressing of the back line, the back three on the Saturday beforehand was, very solid. We didn't allow them any time on the ball. I think Jet, as much as I love Scott Robinson, I think for that game up against that back three, big physical, Hoban, Considine and Taylor, I think Jet up against the three of them, he nullified them pretty well. You saw that for the first goal. It was sort of his hold-up play in a way that then released Holt to release Serrano down the left. I really liked
Jet proper bullied them, eh?
He did. I really liked Serrano as the winger. Obviously, we've seen guys playing the left, Alexis Sibbald, Alan Forrest. I've done a good job there. But I really like Serrano a bit further forward, with Jackson Longridge, obviously, in the first half, certainly as the left back behind him. I quite like the fact that, obviously, Julian's defensively switched on. Obviously, he's an actual fullback, so he can come back a little bit. Jacko can go round him. But I thought they linked up really well, and obviously on the way back, that allowed us to go to a 5 if need be, with Jacko tucking in at left centre half. But the two goals are, from an Aberdeen point of view, they'll be very disappointed. Nicky's free in the box, and we'll not speak about Joe Lewis. I don't think you'll want to see that one back. It was awful from him, which isn't like him, because obviously we saw on Saturday how good he was. He kept out. Well, did he keep out Pittman's? Did it cross the line? We don't know. But, nonetheless, it was a very good save. Aberdeen had one themselves in the second half with Lewis Ferguson. Sort of ghost goal. Was it over the line? Again, it's probably inconclusive. It looked more over the line than the one on Saturday with Conor McLennan. But I thought we were excellent. Josh Mullen, again, dead balls, and that cross for Nicky Devlin is outstanding. It's just, you don't want to properly overpraise and make comparisons, but it did remind me of a sort of David Beckham-esque cross. He's that deep, gets that whip on the ball. It's excellent. And as Ewan just said there, with Davey coming out, it was such a complete performance. Those two early goals, and I never really thought, other than that Ferguson chance, I was never really sort of, obviously we were back to the wall, but I never really thought, we're going to concede here, or they're coming forward and really, really threatening. Again, that midfield, Jason Holt, I thought absolutely ran the midfield. As good as Ferguson was, probably second half, like some McCrory, Hedges, obviously Hedges went off injured, but nobody really offered anything in there for Aberdeen. Kennedy was quiet, Johnny Hayes was kept quiet, and I just thought we were excellent, and it was a thoroughly deserved 3 points.
Yeah, I think you guys are spot on there. Obviously, we played them on the Saturday before the game midweek, and obviously it was a tough game, and Aberdeen probably had the better of chances. And due to that, I'm quite surprised that kind of how easy it was for us, especially in that first half. That first half, we've obviously touched on Holt and Lawson, obviously a midfield pairing that's not really played together that often, but they absolutely ran the show. You're absolutely spot on in saying that. Holt, absolutely tremendous again, plenty of energy, always looking for the ball, recycling it. Yeah. Obviously, a lot of noise has been made about the likes of Ferguson and McCrory this season, but I think McCrory was anonymous for the most part of the game. You probably couldn't tell me anything that he did of that was noteworthy. But yeah, I think Aberdeen fans will be disappointed at the fact that they were completely outworked and they were outclassed on the ball as well. They didn't offer anything, whilst we did show great skill when we were in possession as well. Obviously, you're talking about Mullins' cross, absolutely fantastic, and even the header is perfectly placed. Lewis is better positioned at that side, and the way that Nicky puts it right in the bottom corner is tremendous. Obviously, so that's now Aberdeen lost, what's it, 2 games in a row now. They've been struggling for goals lately, and obviously the pressure's beginning to build on Derek McInnes. Do you start to feel that the Aberdeen fans have got a bit more weight to be aggrieved at their manager?
Yeah, I mean, I do get it. If I was watching my team play like that every week, I wouldn't really be happy. You know, that's 2 games against. Obviously, we've got a very good defence and things like that. But if I was watching my team up against us and not scoring, you know, in 4 days, I think it's now 4 games without a goal. I don't think I saw something yesterday. I don't think there's any of their strikers have scored for something like 1,000 minutes from open play, which is, you know, very, very worrying. Especially with the fact, you know, they've brought in Hornby, they've brought in Hendry, they've brought in Canberry. They don't seem to be, you know, getting goals or even looking threatening at all. Their defence is solid, but I mean, I think it's just that style of football. And as much as I've been sort of, you know, I've got a couple of Aberdeen pals, I've sort of been, you know, I wind them up a wee bit like, come on, you're top 4 every year, you know, you've reached cup finals type thing. I do maybe now, in terms of in the summer, think it will be for maybe time for a change. Not right now, not in the middle of a season. What we've got 11 games left or something. I don't think somebody's going to come in and proper lift it. But at the end of the season, I don't think, you know, we can really sit and say now that they can be that sort of disappointed with McInnes. You know, I think it's probably time up for him in terms of the end of the season. If they can get top 4 again, it's probably a success. But maybe it's just sort of time for a wee bit of freshness at Aberdeen.
I think at Aberdeen, having in the 12th man group chat, we've got a few guys from the Red Tinted Glasses podcast, and I think I'm led to believe that Derek McInnes is on quite a hefty contract after he knocked back the Sunderland job a few years back, which is probably puts the ball in McInnes's court. I don't think he's willing to walk away from the particular contract he's got. Then kind of, I agree with you, Bruni. I think the style of football is one of the biggest gripes for Aberdeen supporters, and they've got to numerous semi-finals. You know, from the outside looking in, as a kind of provincial club supporter, you kind of go, look, you're getting top 4 pretty much every year. You're in the latter stages of cup competitions. What else do you expect from Aberdeen? But I think it's because those few years where Rangers were out of the league and they did challenge Celtic to a degree. And I think for Aberdeen fans, they see it as they're digressing and that they're kind of moving backwards rather than forwards. And in particular this year, they're still looking at Celtic going, look, that's a poor Celtic side, we can catch them. But at the end of the day, Celtic have only lost 3 games in the league, and 2 of those were to Rangers. Despite how bad Celtic have been this year, they're still financially in a different world compared to Aberdeen. So for me, when you've got a fully functioning Celtic and Rangers in the league, Aberdeen's best hope is 3rd place, really. I think it's one of those ones, I hate to agree with Andy, it's better the devil you know a little bit. What would happen if McInnes left Aberdeen and you know the next manager doesn't quite work out? So I can understand the frustrations from Aberdeen fans. You touched on the strikers as well. I mentioned it before, the home game, the 0-0 game, that even Cosgrove hasn't been firing this season. You know, he had a good 18-month spell at Aberdeen, but this season he's been non-existent. Main's not worked for them at all, really. And they're relying on 3 strikers coming in the door and hitting the ground running. You know, Hornby's, he's a young lad. Hendry's not played a lot of football this season, and Canberry on his day is very good, but he's very hot and cold at the same time. So I think kind of moving back onto the Livi side of things, another wee kind of tactical switch from Davy, which was resting Robbo and bringing Jet in. Do you reckon that was because of the impact that Jet made in the 0-0 game kind of in that last 15-20 minutes? Do you reckon that was what swayed them to play Jet from the start?
Yeah, definitely. So you've seen when he came on, bizarrely it seemed as if like when he came on in that 0-0 game, that the likes of Considine and that, they were more interested in fighting the man rather than actually going for the ball. And with a big guy like Jet, he can hold you off like that if you aren't going to properly challenge for the ball. So in that kind of manner, it made it easy for him to start bringing the ball down and get other players involved in the game. And that sort of happened again on Wednesday night. Again, he was like dropping off and showing again and getting involved in the play, and Aberdeen just didn't know how to deal with him, which I'm quite surprised at, to be honest. Jet, obviously, we know is not the most mobile of players. You'd think that free centre halves would be able to deal with that kind of threat fairly well. I know he is a good player in that, but 3 against 1, you've always got to back a solid defence like Aberdeen have had in the last kind of couple of seasons. But yeah, I do think it was a good decision. I don't think the game would have suited Robinson, as there wasn't an awful lot of space being kept behind, and when there was, that the runs were being supported out wide by Serrano and Mullen. But yeah, I think it was the right decision, and yeah, Jet, he's been getting better. Yeah, he's probably a player who's received a fair amount of criticism since he's been at the club, but it's good to see that there is some sort of development that's properly visible, and hopefully it can continue for us.
I just want to touch a wee bit on Steve Lawson and Aaron Taylor-Sinclair. Obviously, Steve Lawson, his chances probably this season have been a wee bit limited. He played middle of the park against Celtic, but usually when he's featured this season, it's been, he's done a job at left back. I remember up at Ross County, he's played in sort of wide areas, mainly from the bench as well. So I thought he was in there, and he didn't look out of place at all. He intercepted wonderfully. He was absolutely fantastic in my opinion. And Taylor Sinclair as well, he's featured in the Betfred Cup, but he's not been in the squad probably the last month, really. He's not even been on the bench. And to come in for Guthrie, obviously, he was, again, we'll come on to it, but he was a big miss on Saturday in particular. I don't think Taylor Sinclair was at it at the weekend, but in terms of Tuesday night, he was probably my pick for man of the match. He headed and kicked everything, he won everything. And he didn't look out of place. I think it was his first Premiership appearance since the third game of the season against Motherwell away from home in that draw. So to come in and he's played against, I think he played against the likes of Airdrie, Alloa. I mean, no disrespect to teams like that, obviously, but to come in and play away at Pittodrie and put in a performance that's of that standard, and keep a clean sheet, I thought was credit to him and credit to the management team and the squad that they've assembled as well, because that's just to have a guy that's not played, I think it was since the 12th of August in the league or something, and to come in and put on a display like that, I mean, take a bow. So I thought he deserved a little bit of praise.
Yeah, well, it was a great squad effort on Tuesday night. Sadly, that form did not continue on to Saturday, which we'll come on to talk about just now.
So, following a great night on Tuesday, Livi were dealt a blow that we've not been used to for quite some time now, as St Johnstone visited West Lothian and unfortunately took away all 3 points. The Saints got revenge for the 2 previous meetings this season, which Livingston came away with wins from. Scott Tanser and Sean Rooney helped Callum Davidson's side come away with all 3 points at the Tony Macaroni Arena. So, boys, the unbeaten run, 14 games, has finally come to an end, and a poor evening really for Livingston. What did we think of it?
Yeah, so
it was
time on this podcast, I'll be sadly talking about a defeat. It's been a good run for myself. Forget about the club's achievements. I'd just like to thank everybody for the support during my run. Has been unbeaten whilst my tenure on the podcast here. But yeah, as you said, bitterly disappointing. More so the kind of manner it happened in, I would say. We never really got going yesterday, and it was, you watched the game, the first half, nothing really happened up until the very last minute of the first half, where St Johnstone win a free kick on the edge of the box and they put it away. Very well placed by Scott Tanser. Perhaps our wall and our goalkeeper should possibly be anticipating it and either jump or show a wee bit of movement, but sometimes a free kick has that wee bit of quality that you just have to hold your hands up to. I think we were all hoping at half time that the lads would come out with a kick up the backside and we would have like some sort of a reaction, but St Johnstone would make it 2-0 through a header from Sean Rooney. And again, after that, we didn't really seem to get an awful lot better. St Johnstone kind of did exactly what we would do. We got our goals and they kind of sat back and just kind of invited the pressure onto us and dealt with everything that came through. We were lucky to not go down 3-0 after a penalty won by Sean Rooney. Stevie May just tries to bloater it as hard as he can down the middle, but Stryjek makes a decent save with his legs, and you're hoping from that point on that kick starts, like that really gets the team going. But again, we still kind of fail to like create chances. We started to get higher up the pitch, but no real clear-cut chances were provided. Jason Holt ended up driving it in the box, plays a decent cross in, and Pittman directs the header tremendously well off the post. And we're hoping there that possibly we can nick a draw. But I think, in all honesty, every Livi fan will admit if we had gotten a single point from that game, it probably would have been completely undeserved. So in that kind of manner, it's kind of sore to take getting beaten that kind of way, but it's hard to be overly critical as we've been on such a great run. We're always going to have a blip of a performance, and yeah, we've basically just got to take this one on the chin and move on to the next one.
I think it's just a reminder that, you know, if you're not totally bang at it in this league, you're going to lose games of football. You know, this run of games that we've been on, unbeaten in 14, we've always had, I'd say, 8 or 9 players who are probably having an 8 or 9 out of 10 performance. And most of the time, if you have that across your starting 11 and guys coming off the bench, you're going to win games. And there was very few players with pass marks yesterday. As you say, Angus, I don't want to be overly critical because of how well we've been playing recently. But, you know, we spoke about how good Aaron Taylor-Sinclair was on Tuesday night. I would say it was equally as poor against St Johnstone. I think the free kick that led to the first goal, he doesn't need to make the challenge, to be honest. Kane's knocking the ball over the top and he's never going to get on the end of it. And there's not as if there's a St Johnstone player running in behind either. And then the wall, it's only Alan Forrest that jumps in the wall. I think if the wall jumps, they might get something on it and redirect it. But when it's that close and he's got it up and over the wall, Stryjek's going to struggle to really do anything with it. The only other note I made from the first half was I think Jason Kerr had a chance in the first couple of minutes from a corner where he's arrived at the back post. But as you said, we had a couple of counter-attacks first half, which really came to nothing. But there was really nothing going for us. Changed the setup half-time, went to 3 at the back. I spoke about that last week with the 2 previous games with St Johnstone. We've tweaked our shape during the game to go to 3 at the back. Wee bit surprised that Davies maybe not started that way, and he has started with 4. But the goal at the start of the second half, it's awful defending. It's a really poor. It's not easy, even as if the ball's been whipped in, you know, with a lot of pace or anything. It's just a kind of floated ball to the edge of the box. Rooney's good header, but I think Nicky Devlin's been caught under the ball, and I think Aaron Taylor-Sinclair's wrong side as well. So good header, but from our point of view, it's a really poor goal. And we've conceded 2 goals, probably the worst times you can in a game, you know, going behind right on half time, and then your team talks basically out the window 5 minutes into the second half. And I think there was only one team that really looked like getting another goal. It was St Johnstone. Penalty, no issues with. I think it was a penalty. Could have possibly been retaken. I think Max was a wee bit off his line, but it's a good save nonetheless from Stevie May. And, you know, I think it took us until about the 75th minute to really kick into gear, I thought. And I think Kabaya injected a little something into the game. He looked quite bright, and he was involved in the goal. Ball across the Holt's good little clip ball in, and it's a good header by Pittman. And we did have a chance to possibly nick a point at the end. I think if Robbo gets a kind of proper contact on the header, he could redirect it the other way, and we're coming away with a point. But as you said, Angus, we didn't deserve anything from that game yesterday. And I think there's a couple of warnings I think developed from that game. We saw in the semi-final with St Johnstone, dead balls, very dangerous. In particular, Sean Rooney, and I think he caused us a couple of problems at dead balls yesterday. And that's something that, you know, Davy can take into the cup final. We're going to need to defend dead balls better. But I think we had Guthrie, Mullen, Serrano all missing for the game. I think we really missed Josh's delivery. I think our dead balls were really poor yesterday. We created absolutely nothing from set pieces. And yeah, it was a really dire way to lose an unbeaten run, but it was going to happen at some point. And as I say, don't want to get too downbeat after that, and hopefully the team can bounce back on Wednesday night against Hamilton.
Yeah, I don't mean not a lot to add really from that. Obviously, I agree with both guys there. I don't think we were at it at all. I'd probably emphasise from, I think it's the second minute or something, St Johnstone. They have a golden opportunity with Jason Kerr at the back post. We're not switched on at all, and that sort of set the standard for the game. Really, we just weren't at it from set pieces. They were first at everything. In the middle of the park. I thought McCann was very good. Their back three I thought was excellent, which obviously pains me to say, but the likes of Kerr, McCart and Gordon, I think it was, as well as the two wing backs, I thought they just fit. They've obviously Callum Davidson's still newish into the job. He took over at the start of the season, but he's really sort of implementing his style now after what was going to be always a difficult job to take over from Tommy Wright. But I thought they were very good. Sean Rainey in particular down the right, I think he's been a terrific addition for them. Again, the free kick's frustrating, as Ewan touches on, preventable, very preventable, as is the second goal. Just not like us really, and that's why obviously maybe it sounds a bit hypocritical from me going, teams will say that for us if we play well that they've had an off day, but as well as St Johnstone did play, we definitely had an off day. I don't think that sort of tinted glasses to hide the fact that how poor we were, but I do think we were poor, but I do think that it is a blip, and it's you look at over the course of these 15 games, that's the first defeat under Martindale. It's definitely a sort of an anomaly. The fact that we've been so good over this run, we did show a wee bit of fight towards the end, which is probably the only real positives you can take. I thought Jason Holt was one of very few with pass marks in the middle of the park. He does well to clip the ball in, and it's a good header from Pitts. But we left it too late. Jace Kabaya as well, probably a little highlight. I think he looks a fantastic addition. He looks brilliant. He's powerful for a small guy as well. He's not small, but for a youngster, he's very powerful. Seems to have absolutely no fear. You'd think somebody coming to a new league from Ireland would sort of hide a wee bit, but he seems keen to get on the ball, to be direct, and you saw that he whipped in a couple of very dangerous crosses, one of which ended up leading to the first goal, and Robbo probably should do better for his second cross late on. But yeah, I think Jay's maybe deserves a wee run from the start, but again, who does he come in for? I don't think I certainly wouldn't want to pick the team because we've got such a good squad at the minute. But yeah, as you both said, we did miss Serrano, we did miss Guthrie, we did miss Mullen. John Guthrie, as Davey touched on, we missed in both boxes. Defending plus going forward from set pieces. I don't think we really, as tall as Taylor Sinclair is, I don't really think he offers a threat in terms of going up there from set pieces. And Effie Ambrose obviously yet to score for Livi. I think he'd probably say himself, he's not particularly brilliant at finishing and things like that. But yeah, Guthrie was a big miss. But again, I'm just hoping it's a blip and that we've lured them a wee bit into a false sense of security going into the cup final. That's 2-1 now, I make it, in terms of the results this season. So hopefully it's maybe just a wee scare and it gives us that sort of lift going into the cup final. And I'd rather have lost yesterday than lose come the 28th of February.
Yeah, that's definitely the main thing. If anything, it makes that cup final look a bit more tantalising now. Yeah, hopefully they'll be thinking, we've got the better of them, and we can do it again. But I would like to think that it'll be a completely different Livingston side that will show up on the 28th of February. As you say, I hope we have certain players back, as I think their absences were duly noticeable. But I guess at the same time, we can't really complain too much about that, as we've rotated our squad plenty of times and had many different lineups during this run. Obviously, you just look at the Aberdeen game, we had no Guthrie, and look how well we defended. So yeah, it's a sore one to kind of take, and yeah, all eyes now on Hamilton, try and put this poor game behind us and bounce back with a victory midweek?
I think a few of the pundits in Scottish football are going to be quite intrigued by our game on Wednesday night. Obviously, as we record, Hamilton have just got a precious point at home to Rangers, late equaliser, so they'll probably come into this in a wee bit of confidence. And look, it'll be interesting to see how we bounce back under Davy. You know, as you say, it's only been positive since Davy's come in, so this is, as you say, the first wee blip. So it'll be interesting to see how we bounce back. But what we'll do now is we'll go on to talk about that Hamilton game just shortly. There isn't much time for us to lick our wounds as Brian Rice's Hamilton are next on the horizon for Livi. Davy Martindale will be home for an immediate reaction as we host the Premiership's lowest placed side. Accies are the league's expert survivors, so this one isn't going to be taken for granted. How important is it that we bounce back with a strong performance on Wednesday night, guys?
Vital.
Yeah, after the kind of
Absolutely
way we
vital.
played on Saturday there, I think everybody will be expecting a reaction. As we've already seen in a couple of the fan forums, there seems to be a wee bit of an overreaction to the results, so there'll be definitely a couple of people hoping for a lot better, so they have a better evening on Wednesday night. But yeah, Davy and the players will know themselves that they're capable of much more, and obviously Davy's talked about kind of touching of pushing on to like possibly challenging for a European place, moving up the table and securing top six. The teams kind of around us, St Mirren and Dundee United, picked up points at the weekend, so yeah, it is important for us to kind of regain that kind of lead we had ahead of them. As you said though, even though Hamilton are bottom of the league, this is the part of the season that Hamilton somehow strive in. We've already seen today they've managed to get a 1-1 draw at home to Rangers with 7 shots on target against the Ibrox side, which is the most that Rangers have faced this entire season. So yeah, you look at Hamilton's squad and you might be thinking, oh, like on paper, like we should do them in all honesty, but they just have this knack of managing to pull things off, and it is truly remarkable at times to witness. And hopefully we're not the next victims of that, and that adds even more of a reason as to why we have to be at it, because we've seen how Hamilton can punish teams, and we've already felt that this season. Earlier in the season, under Gary Holt, we got beat 2-1 off of them when, in all honesty, we weren't really in that much trouble. Then we had I think it was like 2 set pieces, and we were suddenly looking down the barrel of a loss. But yeah, it's a massive game on Wednesday. Hopefully we can get a much better performance and come away with the 3 points.
Yeah, we need to up it from Saturday. Of course, due Hamilton, I think from the last home game between the sides, you know, don't think we were again at it that day really. But credit to Hamilton that day, you know, they sort of sucker punched us really, and took away the 3 points. We then obviously went there. I think just middle of December, midweek, 23rd it might have been, and we, you know, blew them away. I thought we were excellent that night. It was 2-0 going on 4 or 5. So I think we'll have a lot of the ball. I think I was really impressed with Hamilton today against Rangers. Obviously we're not of that quality. I'm not expecting Hamilton to show us that much respect and sit in as much against us, but I do think we'll have a lot of the ball. I do think we will dictate the play. The likes of Bartley and Holt will control the midfield and control possession, and I think they'll probably sit in with a couple of banks of 4. I think they've been playing at a 4-4-2 recently, so they are probably a threat on the break. I think Bruce Anderson's a good addition for them personally. Ross Callaghan obviously going to be the threat. He scored again today. I think that's 7 goals for him now. So, you know, they do have threats themselves, but I think that defence is there to be got at, certainly. And if we can, you know, do what we've been doing these last 14 games before the blip at the weekend there, I think we'll be fine. You know, again, Ewan just touched on it there in the build-up. Hamilton worry me. They always worry me. They're always sort of, over the years, they've been a wee bit of a bogey team, and you know, you're never quite. You look at it on paper, you're at home after I think 1 loss in 15 for us. You should be looking at it as 3 points, but it's never that easy. You know, they fight for everything, especially this time of the season. So it does worry me a wee bit because we'd usually be favourites of like going into this game, but now, obviously with the run we've been on and Davy Martindale coming in, we are probably overwhelming favourites now, and everybody, in the media will be expecting us to take the 3 points here and sort of prove it was a blip at the weekend. So again, that worries me a wee bit. Hamilton will come with no real pressure to get anything from the game other than the fact that they're fighting for their lives at the bottom. But I think we'll be fine. I do think we can get the 3 points, and if we play as well as we have done, as I say, during this run, then we'll be good.
Yeah, I mean, pardon the pun about the Hamilton commentator, but Hamilton are like the jobby that just doesn't flush. Every season, every pundit, talks about it at the start of the season that they think they'll go down, but every time they say it, they're going, you just don't want to say Hamilton, because every year they just pull it out the bag and somehow scrape out of trouble. I agree with you, Bruni. I think Bruce Anderson is a good addition for them. I think he adds a little bit of pace and something a wee bit different up front for them. I haven't seen any of the Rangers game, but watched the highlights against Ross County, and as you say, they played two up. They played Ogdenpo and Anderson, who, big man, little man sort of partnership, and could cause a few problems, whereas Ogdenpo's caused us a few problems before last season as well. So I think Hamilton do have threats. As you say, Callahan's been kind of their talisman this season, grabbing a few goals for them from the middle of the park. But look, with the run of form comes expectation. Folk are going to be expecting us to kind of roll Hamilton over on Wednesday night. But it's that time of the season where Hamilton seem to come alive and start picking up points here and there, as we just saw against a Rangers team who have been utterly dominant this season. So they'll come into it with a little bit of confidence, I'm sure. I think one compliment I will give Hamilton under Brian Rice is I think they do try to attack a little bit more than previous Hamilton sides. I think they want to try and go on the front foot a little bit, maybe in spite of a little bit of quality here and there. But I think Davy's got a job, I think, on his hands in terms of a lineup. There was a few players that, let's be honest, didn't really do themselves any favours. I don't think Alan Forrest was particularly good. I don't think he barely touched the ball first half on Saturday there. Taylor Sinclair had a poorer game, for example. So what are your thoughts kind of on how we approach the game? Do you see us any particular shape? Because we know Davy's becoming a little bit that Ranieri, a little bit of Tinkerman sort of style manager. He kind of approach it game to game.
I guess it kind of depends on who's available. Obviously, we touched on how Guthrie, Serrano and Mullen were missing in the game against St Johnstone. So if they were available, I guess you would maybe play them. If not, I guess we'll see a kind of similar setup. I would like to see if Craig Sibbald is fit coming from the start. As he's touched on, if he's available to play from the start. You touched on about how we'll probably control more of the ball. I don't think that kind of game properly suits Marvin Bartley in most cases. I know it's kind of hard to dislodge a captain, but if we're going to be controlling a game for basically the whole 90 minutes, I think Marv can get kind of lost in the shuffle in some of those instances. I know he has like great leadership skills and all of that, but we've seen at the game that he was suspended for when we played against Hamilton away from home earlier in the season, how Holt and Sibbald really thrived in playing as a midfield duo together, knocking the ball about, getting out wide in that. I would like to see Alan Forrest probably try have another start again. I think he'll be somebody who's desperate to prove something. I don't think he was particularly bad on Saturday. I don't think he was given really much service, and it's kind of hard to do, like, to get on the ball really when the whole team's not really moving up as a whole unit either. Maybe has to do more as an out ball, but yeah, I would like to see Forrest get a proper run, because he does always kind of seem to be the first kind of sacrifice, and I would like to hope that it's kind of starting to burn a fire within him, that he'll just eventually just snap and start providing like amazing performances. I think we're forgetting that he's also he's our top goal scorer this season due to his like form in the Betfred Cup. So yeah, I would hope to see the kind of the more kind of flair players kind of playing against Hamilton, as we are going to have more of the ball, so having those creative and goal threats on would be the best ideal. What do you guys think about striking options? Do you think this is better suited for Jet, or do you think it's better suited for like Robinson? Obviously, Platonic and Tiffany were back on the bench as well. Would either of them be like a better choice as well?
It's a tough one, isn't it? Because I think obviously in that Hamilton away game, Robinson, despite not scoring, he got into several good positions. Thought he was excellent that night, albeit he probably could have had a hat trick. So he can be critical from that aspect. I think he hit the bar. He had a couple of one-on-ones that he really should have been scoring. He'll know that himself. Then that obviously propelled him to go on the run he was on with the goal at Kilmarnock, the winner there. I think it was 4 and 6 he had. So I'd like to see Robinson start, although again it's in the same breath of J. Emmanuel Thomas when he came off the bench against Aki's in the away midweek game. I thought he was excellent when he came off the bench. Other than the 2 Aberdeen games recently, I think that's probably his best performance for Livi, coming off the bench. I think he probably should have won a penalty that night as well. But maybe, I don't know if you go both of them up. Maybe you play Robbo a wee bit deeper, or Jet out wide. It's a tricky one, Again, I think it's good to have all these options. Obviously, shows the great squad depth that we've got. But for me, I think you start Robbo, get the ball into his feet, and you look for options in the wide area. Hopefully, Mullen's there, to provide delivery to the on-rushing, like the likes of Pittman, cut it back for him. Jason Holt, again, I think is a must start in the midfield. He's, for me now, probably, other than Pittman, he's probably the first name on the team sheet. And obviously John Guthrie, if he's back, he'll be a massive welcome back to the team. But Mullen as well. Mullen and Guthrie, for me, are much needed in this side due to their threat at set pieces. Obviously Mullen with his delivery and Guthrie going forward in both boxes.
Yeah, I think we talked about our set pieces against St Johnstone were really poor. The delivery was not great at all. So for me, if Josh is available, I'd like to see Josh back. We'll have an interview with Josh during the week. Spoke to him, and I think it was the challenge up at Pittodrie he had with Lewis Ferguson. I think he injured his back. He still had a sore jaw from that one as well. So I think Josh should be back, probably available for Wednesday night. And if that is the case, I would have him in. It's maybe a game to maybe give Kabaya a run from the start. You're talking about flair players. I think he's shown he can be very creative out on that left-hand side or kind of in behind the forwards. You're talking about that option, whether you go with Jet or whether you go with Robbo. As you said, Bruni, you could almost go, Jet's almost been playing as that kind of number 10 coming in off the right-hand side quite a lot for us recently, and Robbo up top. That might be an option to accommodate the two of them in the side. As I say, it's a good headache to have for Davy. There's lots of options in the squad. But what we'll do is we'll get on to predictions. So Angus, we'll start with you. What are you thinking for Hamilton on Wednesday night?
I think it'll be quite a close game. They'll be hard to break down, but I think we eventually will do so. Kind of in a similar vein to perhaps the Kilmarnock game quite recently. So I'm going to go for Livingston 2, Hamilton 0.
And Bruni, what are you expecting Wednesday night?
I think we'll control the game. I think we'll dominate possession, and they'll be very stuffy at the back. But I think we'll nick a 1-0 win. Obviously, a deserved 1-0 win. I think they'll be solid, hard to break down. But I think it'll be a stuffy sort of 1-0 victory, and nervy a wee bit towards the end with Hamilton coming forward still in the game. But I fancy us to win 1-0.
And I hate predicting Hamilton, I really do. But I'm going to expect us to bounce back. I think the boys will have the bit between their teeth going into the game on Wednesday. I'm going to go for 3-1 Livi. I think Hamilton will nick a goal, but I think our quality is going to shine through as the game progresses. And hopefully one of our scorelines is right, because it will be back to winning ways for Livi.
Last of all, Livi will be travelling to Dundee to face Mickey Mellon's Dundee United. United have had a mixed season, with them recently picking up their first win in 8 games. Our last trip to Tannadice saw us take the 3 points in the dying embers of the match. What kind of game can we expect this time round, guys?
I've both games we've played Dundee United, I've seen nothing other than a team that I think should be struggling more than they really are this season. Everyone talks about the firepower that they've got up top with the likes of Shankland, Clark, McNulty, but in the middle of the park, they're really lacklustre in terms of any sort of creative spark. They've not been very good on the eye at all. And I mean, the game up at Tannadice, it would have been daylight robbery if we hadn't beat them that night. And then the home game as well, they were okay, but again, didn't really cause any sort of threat during the game. But as you say, they've got back to winning ways, first win in 8. So you can't overlook them by any stretch. But it's a game I'm not scared of playing Dundee United. I don't think there's anything really to fear, and I think win the midfield battle. I think we're more than capable of coming away from Tannadice with another positive result. Because as I say, if you win the midfield battle, they're going to struggle to create opportunities, and that is, I think, Dundee United's Achilles heel is their creativity in the middle of the park.
Yeah, I agree with you, and I don't think I've seen anything particularly special from Dundee United this season. Obviously, don't watch them every week, but especially in the games I've seen them against us. Obviously, one, in fairness, obviously they had a couple of guys missing through sort of self-isolation and things like that. But in the game at Tannadice, the reverse fixture, we absolutely dominated them. We left it late, 1-1 in the end. Obviously, they went 1-0 up. I think that's probably the only chance of the game. Nicky Clark's free kick that night, but we had so many chances, and it could have been so much more comfortable. Obviously, importantly, we got the 3 points in the end, and I think that sparked sort of an amazing away run, really, which our away form's been criticised this season. Not this season, sorry, the last couple of seasons. This season, the away form's been very, very good. And that's why, going into away games now, I don't really think about it. I think if in terms of us doing predictions, the last couple of seasons, we'd have gone, we'll play well, but we're away from home, so we won't win type thing. But now, I think, we don't really fear anyone. We don't fear grass parks like folk would make out that we do. So I certainly don't fear Dundee United. We've beaten them both times this season. So again, if you mentioned the midfield, if we control that midfield's miles better than United's, in my opinion. You look at Bartley, Holt, Sibbald compared to Harks and Butcher, and these Dundee United sort of limped their way up in the Championship. I think they were in there 3 or 4 seasons, and we've had a very good record over them since they came up, obviously, last season. So I do fancy us. Obviously, it's difficult kind of when we come on to predictions to predict, obviously, because we don't know the Hamilton result at the minute. But I just do think that will be too much for them. I think it'll be an even game in a way, but I think we'll just have too much and we'll just edge it.
Yeah, with Dundee United this season, I think it's been like a very, very strange one. Obviously, for the most part, they've been in the top 6, but I think it would be safe to say that it is, in some ways, a kind of a false position. They haven't been great at all. There's a lot of games that it's been like kind of stuffy, and as we've mentioned, how they have likes of Shankland, McNulty, and Clark up front, they've got nowhere near the best out of them, and a large part of that is the fact that they do struggle to create many chances. Their key player this season is by far 100% being Benjamin Siegrist, the goalkeeper, who has kept them in so many games and earned them so many points. But yeah, like Dundee United gained a lot of plaudits kind of earlier in the season because they were in the top 6, but I kind of feel like it's starting to show now, like that they were in the top 6 for that kind of long because everybody else was so poor. We were poor, St Mirren weren't on great form, Motherwell still haven't managed to completely turn things around. Even St Johnstone and Kilmarnock haven't had like the greatest of seasons. So I think it'll be interesting to see how they get on from now till the end of the season because, yeah, as we said, I've not been overly impressed with them. I've only watched them a handful of times, but it's been the 2 games that we beat them, a couple of games that they played the Old Firm, and then I watched the game midweek where they got beat 5-1 off of St Mirren, which was an absolute calamitous effort from them. So I don't think they're anybody we should fear. I'm sincerely hoping that I'm not jinxing us at this moment, but yeah, I'm not worried at all going to Tannadice. I feel like we can definitely go there and we can pick up something quite similar to what we did not too long ago at Almondvale when Pittman and Bartley got the goals. But yeah, nothing to fear there. Let's hope we get a good result on Wednesday and take that momentum into Saturday as well.
Thing I always think is kind of Dundee United's saving grace this season, you touched on it there, Angus, is Siegrist in goals, and I think their defence has been okay. They've not leaked too many goals, but as of late they've started conceding a few more. But when I look at the individuals in their back line, I always think you can get change out of them. Connolly, I think sees some sort of Beckenbauer playing out from the back, centre half, and I think you put him under pressure, he's got a mistake in him. You saw that in the game up at Tannadice where Poplatnik caught him on the ball for the winner. And Reynolds as well, if you can get Reynolds turning, I think he's going to struggle with any sort of pace in behind. So, I think if we can do a sort of pressing job like we did against Aberdeen up at Pittodrie, and especially in the first half, I think there's plenty of chances in this game for us. And it's another good opportunity to get points on the board. Obviously, we hate doing the predictions when we've got a game midweek as well because we don't know the outcome, but we'll do it as per. Bruni, we'll start with you this time. What are you thinking for Saturday against Dundee United?
I predict rage from Mark Connolly, the angriest man in football, as Livingston come away with a 2-1 win, similar to the last game at Tannadice.
And Angus, what are we expecting?
I'm going to be a wee bit more optimistic. I'm going to go for Livi to win 3-1 away from home. I think this is a game that we could possibly go and take to them, and that we don't really have much to fear. Hopefully a couple of our players are back, but yeah, I don't think that's too far out of our reaches in this current kind of form that we have been in, obviously, bar Saturday's game.
I'm kind of caught in two minds despite just slating Dundee United for the last 10 minutes. I'm still caught in two minds whether to go for a draw or win, but
3-0 United.
But I'm going to be positive. I'm going to think Livi are going to come away with 3 points and prove that the St Johnstone game was just a blip in the road. I'm going to go for 2-0 Livi. I think we'll be able to keep them out the other end. So hopefully, once again, one of us is correct on the predictions and the Amber machine keeps rolling on.
That's it for this week's episode of Talk Livi. Thank you very much again to every single person for tuning in this week and week in, week out as well. If you can, we'd love to hear your feedback. Either leave us a review on iTunes or simply pop us a message on Twitter, Facebook or Instagram.
As Callum said, we're on Facebook, Twitter and Instagram. Search Talk Livi to find us. You'll find all the links to our weekly episodes on there as well. You can also find all our episodes, including this one, on all good podcast streaming sites, including iTunes and Spotify. We're also on YouTube, so don't forget to subscribe to the channel. If none of those options suit you though, all you have to do is head to our website, talklivipodcast.libsyn.com, where you'll find every single episode we've done over the last few years.
That's it for this week. Thanks again for tuning in. Let's hope for another great week following the Lothian's finest football team.
Livingston, a love will never die. West Lothian is our battle cry. This is the place from which we hail. Livingston, oh Livingston, it's up to Ambervale. Livingston, 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 oh Livingston, oh Livingston, we love it when you score. Livingston, oh Livingston, the Ambervale Lions roar. Livingston, oh Livingston, we realize our vision. Livingston, oh Livingston, into the Premier Division.